Hey, Zoomers, welcome back to World Zoom. So happy you could join me again today. Thank you for the super thanks today, and thank you for the subscriptions. Greatly appreciated. Last couple days have been talking a little bit about the Middle East. Seems fairly clear to me there's not a great deal of interest from my subscriber base on the Middle East. Anyway, it was worth a shot, right? Throw out what I knew on Saudi Arabia and what I knew on the United Arab Emirates. And if that's something you enjoyed or liked or supported, I would happy to continue on. For the most part, it wasn't that well received. Most of you didn't agree that that's a good place to visit, and almost universally you agreed that's certainly not a retirement destination. So, hey, enough. Sometimes part of YouTube is an experimentation, and so I tried that. That didn't work, and so I won't go that route again. But I was looking at several of a lot of the comments that were there, and specifically about the Philippines. And I think that, and I just want to say this directly, I think under most circumstances, you, as my subscriber base, could still choose the Philippines for a holiday, even for retirement or for work, if you stay out of certain categories. Now, part of the sour taste in my mouth, and you all know what it is, that I was wrongly detained and set up by an expat and then sort of extorted by the government. But what are the chances that that would ever happen to you in the Philippines? And I developed a list of 5 things that if I was one of those 5, either by recommendation or just through some of my past actions, I probably would not choose to spend a great deal of time in the Philippines. Now, if you're going for a holiday, most of these things wouldn't really make any difference whatsoever. But if you're going long term, I was just looking back at some of the other channels and what my experience was, what I've seen over a number of years in the Philippines. And, I just came up with a list of 5 things of what could happen or something that you would be doing that could cause you to have a similar experience that I had or Mike had or Barry had or some of the other expats that have got themselves in hot water in the Philippines. And one of the first, and I'm completely serious about this. I would think if you really want to be a YouTuber, and you think you're going to have a decent audience, maybe the Philippines really is not for you. And you may say, well, Paul, look, there's some successful vloggers that are there, that are doing just fine and not getting themselves in trouble. And I would say, pretty much all the successful YouTubers that have had some dicey situations or some opportunities that could have gone the wrong way and got them in quite a bit of trouble. And I don't mean the Filipina, like the Filipina P, who is Filipina, or the Savvy Expat, or some of those that have a Filipino slant. I'm talking about expats that come in and have the YouTube channels. Because let's face it, like Tim K and Sunshine Shoulders and Paul Old Dog and Mike's Philippine Retirement and myself and a whole host, I could probably go easily a dozen deep here and say that those YouTubers have had some sort of trouble, either almost having to appear to see the NBI, having some complaints made against them to the police, or certainly some complaints made, in their comments, and there's been some stresses to just your regular way of life and what you might want to have in your retirement. So if you're thinking you're going to need an extra $200, $300, $400 US a month to get by in the Philippines, God, there certainly has to be some other way for you to get those monies outside of YouTube. If you want to have long-term happiness, in the Philippines and not have a lot of internal stress. And let's face it, no one likes getting pounded. You can laugh about some of the comments, but no one wants that long-term stress of just every day just getting pounded and blasted. It takes a strange person, I think, that would enjoy that type of abuse. Even when 8 are positive out of 10 and you read the other 2, your average human, psychological profile is going to look at that and seem to dwell on some of those negatives, or at least that's the case for me. So that would be number one for me if you want to still come to the Philippines, and I still would recommend it, is that stay clear of YouTube. Just, find some other small way to pass your time or to get additional revenue. I know you may say, hey, that's easier said than done, but let's look at, the vloggers that are there. There's very few that are in the $1,000 month range. And so if you've retired from getting your pension from Canada or Australia or the US and you're there, then hopefully there's enough income for you to get by in a low-cost country like the Philippines. So think very hard if the route that you want to go with YouTube. And it's something I wish I had considered more, at least paid more attention to, seeing the turmoil of some of the long-term expats that YouTube. Second, I would say your potential risk factor goes up in a hurry, like YouTube, would be getting sideways with a Filipina or with her family. I will say my feeling is that the bar for legal charges is very, very low when it's a Filipino versus an expat. And so if you get yourself in trouble with a Filipina, and whether they file charges with you or go to the police or the MBI and say you're libel or slanderous or you caused her harm, either psychologically or physically, cheated them out of some monies. I mean, there are all host of things we have seen in relationships that go wrong in the Philippines. So, number one, don't YouTube. Number two, stay clear of the strife with your partner, with your girlfriend, with your spouse, and with her family. Because when a community comes against you and begins to file reports, it's not going to be very long till they're going to decide that you're undesirable in the country. And as I said, the bar is low for those charges to stick. And you don't want to be forever in the NBI, having been summoned there to justify your actions. And we've seen, some YouTubers and some other folks in there fairly often. That is not a comfortable situation. I mean, who in the U.S. would want to go to a meeting with the FBI where they're asking you a host of questions? No one wants to do that in retirement. And the way you get yourself in that situation is by, getting cross with your spouse or her family, or even a stranger in Tim K's situation. You just have a bit of some conflict at a restaurant or at a bar or something like that, and then it can lead to charges to you. So, and say whatever you want. Those are stressful situations for you. Three, I would be very careful with the expats. You've heard this, recommendation time and time again from other YouTubers if you follow them, but choose your expat friends very carefully. They're fairly articulate. And so when they decide to, most of them, so when they decide to make a complaint about you to immigration or to the NBI, they have the ability to do so in such a manner, sometimes even utilizing legal counsel or throwing a little money under the table to get you in trouble. And we've all heard the stories, just like in my case, of an expat causing harm to another expat. It goes on. And I don't know that it's uniquely Philippine expats that are causing harm to each other, but I don't hear about it much in any other countries. Even the countries similar to the Philippines, like Thailand and Vietnam and Cambodia, you really don't hear about the expat versus expat, especially YouTuber, causing actual harm to someone that they've gotten angry with or had an argument with or had a fight with. So no YouTube. Stay clear of problems with the Filipinos and stay clear of expats, or at least before you let them in or get real close. Think about what you're doing. Think about if you were back in Illinois or back in Iowa, would this be the type of person that you would normally hang out with? Are they your socioeconomic group? Do they have professional characteristics like you have? Are they educated, non-educated? Are they Democrat? Are they Republican? What are the sports that they like? There are some important factors, I think, to determine before you start spending a great deal of time. And if you do get with someone and they're just super negative or super aggressive or condescending or whatever that might be, then just find yourself clear from that individual and go a different direction. Fourth, don't overstay. The place where I was full of overstayers. I was the only non-overstayer that had been there now since that time they brought in, especially to Bikitan, a bunch of Chinese and Koreans in the gambling group. So I imagine that's going to be in the hundreds coming up over the next few months as they crack down on the illegal gambling that is just all over, but super heavy in Manila and unbelievably heavy in Cebu. The apartment that I lived on, South Road Properties, that condo, that was absolutely chock full of Chinese that have come. Whether they were there legally or illegally, I don't know, but I do know they were in the gambling industry, and not necessarily, with the casino that was right next door to the condominium. I think they were doing something completely different, and they'd gone through the Bureau of Immigration with bribes and payments to be able to get their visas to be there, having not met the other parameters. But most of those BI guys have been caught at this point, and over 100 of them have been fired and discharged, for breaking the law and for accepting bribes to give out certain visas. So don't overstay. It's not that expensive. Find what works for you. Do the things you need to do, because if you do get picked up for an overstay, it's not like some other countries where you're just going to go to the court and pay your fees and leave the country and get blacklisted. At a very minimum, you're looking at 4 months, and that's if you're paying the money under the table. There are overstayers that I know of that have been more than 1 year, both in Cebu and in Bikitan and Manila. So don't be one of those guys for something that's not that expensive to start with. That's number 4. Number 5 is, simply just don't break the law. There are a lot of things that can go wrong anywhere you are worldwide. And sometimes things are just happen out of your control. And maybe you've been accused of breaking the law when you really didn't. Maybe you didn't know the law and perhaps you did actually break it. Or sometimes, you're just going to take the shortcut or do things you shouldn't do and actually do break the law. But usually it's some sort of combination of being an overstay and having someone filing a case or you actually breaking the law. So maybe you've overstayed for 5 or 6 years. They're really not looking for you. They're not looking for you unless you fall in their lap. But if you've overstayed 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years and someone files a case on you or files a complaint about you or goes to the BI and tells them, that you are an overstayer and you also did this and this, they will come pick you up. I mean, they certainly have a task force enough to be able to go almost anywhere in the Philippines and get you and put you in that situation. But all the people that I know of in Bikitan and also in Cebu had both an overstay and a case and something else, some other case. So think about the people that you know that are in Bickatan right now. They're most often not just overstayers because they just don't want to waste their time and their resources getting overstays. They figure at some point that person's going to surface and have to pay the fines to leave the country or get in trouble and go to detention. They don't have to utilize the resources to go get them. But especially if a Filipino complains about the foreigner being an overstayer and also files and gets the NBI or the local police to file a police report on that individual, that's a double whammy for you, and they will be coming to get you. They absolutely will when they have both, and your stay is not going to be pleasant. You've seen the photos. So I feel like I was given the impression that, if you go to the Philippines, you're going to get arrested and held and extorted and bullied and taken advantage of. I don't think that's the case. I really don't. In my case, a mistaken situation just snowballed and got out of hand. In the other cases of the people that were there, they had broken the law, in most cases at least twice, the overstay and some other crime. Whether they did the crime or not, they've been accused of the crime, and that's the reason they're there. But it's not very often that you just have someone come in on a 30-day holiday or 60-day holiday and they end up in detention or they end up getting blacklisted or sent home. They had to do something, right? So I don't think you need to be there looking over your shoulder when you're completely innocent, thinking I really have to be careful or the government's going to get me and extort me. I mean, yeah, they did do that to me, but I think that's a very, very rare set of circumstances. And, let's face it, the Filipino people they're decent. They really are. I do think the government's corrupt, but I think your average Filipino, it's still a good place to go. There's good people. There's a lot of fun things to do. There's nice things. There's inherent risk when you're an expatriate anywhere. Think about the folks that are in Central and South America. They often have troubles. Some of the other Southeast Asian countries have trouble. Even if they've gone to Europe and Scandinavia, there are potential pitfalls, usually financial, but there can be other ones there. So when you leave the comforts of your own country, there are some potentials for things that can go wrong. But it's still, in my opinion, the benefits outweigh the negatives. I really feel at this point there's no way for me to return to the Philippines, even going through the process of having a year blacklist. I think if I went back, I could have that pretty easily removed with the paperwork from the embassy saying that, they never asked for me to be picked up, and the admission from the Philippines that I was detained wrongfully. I think I could have that removed. But how can I go back really at this point when I've insulted really from top to bottom, called out, and will make a complaint written to the Philippine Ombudsman complaint at a minimum to try and receive the monies that they extorted from me, but also to shed light on what is going on in the BI and what you can expect for your treatment if you do get sideways with them. So I'm still saying it's a good place to go. Stay away from those 5 things, and you can think of some obscure 6, 7s, and 8s, but those are the top 5s I can think of that can get you in trouble anywhere, but certainly in the Philippines. So let me know what you think. I'll go back to Southeast Asia, keep talking about those kind of things, and stay away from the Middle East. So I'll talk with you guys soon. You take care. From World Zoom, I'll see you guys in a couple days. Bye-bye.